And also these shots are just pretty. A lot of the shots here in this episode, when they have stills, they're very pretty. Welcome back to a wonderful review of Wonderful Precure. Today we are watching Connecting Bonds. Friendly Wand. Or at least that's the Crunchyroll translation. Technically it's the Friendly Tact. I don't know why Crunchyroll decided to translate an English word to a different English word. Tacts are kind of cornerstone of Precure, but I assume that whoever's translating it just doesn't know the history about Precure. When they decided to change it to Wand, I guess they're just tacts are not as popular in English. I don't know. Nonetheless, we are focusing on this episode that has huge amount of focus on the leash and the importance of the leash. So right at the top of the episode, we cover that. Immediately, we get a little bit of a lead on what's going to be the focus episode. Overall, structure-wise, I think this episode was very well balanced between a couple of elements. It's a very Komugi Iroha focused episode that also sprinkles in some lore. We also get to see both Satoru and Mayu in this episode. And then we also have these newer characters that are here very briefly. They're just supposed to help put in the concept that we're going to focus on the episode, where we have this little girl with her own dog who refuses to be leash trained. And we have Iroha kind of have this moment where she recollects on how she got Komugi to behave. And one of the bigger elements of this was also that leash, well, there's certain stereotypes you have of the leash, but the leash in this represents trust. And I think it's a very interesting focus to this episode, and I think it's very interesting where the next episode is supposed to go, since this kind of feels like it's turning into a little bit of a two-parter. But I also think it's kind of a two-parter in the sense that we're really getting to the item, the Friendly Tact. We also get to see kind of the end result of Iroha already having gone down that path of dealing with an animal that didn't really work with her. She seems to already demonstrate that animals have a lot of trust with her. She has a lot of patience. She's already gone through a sizable amount of growth. And I like that they do that in this episode. Normally, I'm not always super fond when the cures like have someone else be the lesson and that they've already experienced the lesson. But I like that they balance it in this episode where Iroha reflects on the fact that she has gone through all of this, but she actually gets to see the results of it because she's not quite sure that she really has earned trust at the end of the day. She's not quite sure of her own abilities, but she really gets the payout here. But we also get to learn a little bit more about Iroha's dad. So he's not just somebody who like supports at the shop, he's specifically a pet groomer. So he's the kind of person who will do like cut work, will bathe animals. He takes a lot of care of them, makes sure they're nice and clean, makes sure their fur is nice and shiny. We just get this cute little montage of him taking care of Komugi, which I think is super adorable. We also have a couple of goofy Komugi bits in here where Komugi's like, I've been the best dog ever. I was so easy for Iroha, 10 out of 10. And Iroha was like, I remember when I had trouble getting Komugi to take the leash. And Komugi's like, excuse me? Excuse me? Like, this starts off as a funny bit, but it does later play out as the episode goes on that Komugi genuinely has some strong amnesia in terms of what life was like before Iroha, or life got really good with Iroha. And while this could just be like an age thing, since there's implications that Komugi's pretty young, I still, like I said last episode, where they pointed out that Yuki was also a stray, I'm getting the sense that there's gonna be some big plot payoffs to the fact that both Komugi and Yuki are strays, and that they probably don't have a lot of memories. Like, it feels like it's an overall lore thing. Probably could explain why they have the ear, like the heart on the back of their heads. A lot of people are in the same boat of like, they're probably from the Nico Garden and maybe like went through something very similar to it. I've seen a couple theories thrown around that like Nico-sama might actually be like both Komugi and Yuki, like doing kind of a split thing that we have, without spoiling the other seasons, we've seen in other seasons that very important figures have become more than one figure and split off. So there's a lot of fun theories with the direction it's going, and like the fact that they put this little nugget of lore in here. Which, again, after having a couple of seasons where they shove all the lore at the very end, I'm hoping that they kind of keep this trend. It's a little early to call it, but I hope they keep this trend where they keep, like, shoving some lore in every so often. Oh, the other thing that this episode does that I really appreciate is that it does not shortchange the concept of the theme. And they do that here, and they do it a little bit later in the episode. It drives me nuts with Precure a little bit. I'm gonna call it out for other seasons. A lot of the time when there's a theme for a season, it's there solely to be an aesthetic. And I feel like it's such a missed opportunity, especially with a children's show, to just give us some facts and information. Like, I'm gonna shade a little bit to Tropical Rouge. There was not enough tropical information in my Tropical Rouge. The amount of facts about the ocean was really, it was very low. There were not enough ocean facts. I did not learn about oceans. I did not learn about fish. I did not learn important information in that season. The only thing I learned a little bit about was papaya, and that was at the very end. So, I do love that this series is about animals, and we're getting facts about animals. Like, she's literally explaining the procedure to leash train a dog, and it's accurate. It's not just, like, something that the writers, like, came up with out of the blue and they're like, this is how we think you should leash train a dog. No, they're actually going through the steps on how to properly leash train a dog. In the same way that other episodes, they, like, talked about how dogs aren't supposed to eat, like, people food and stuff, and it's not safe. It's like they're actually taking the steps to point out stuff that's not too complex, but, like, things that are just little factoids that kids could learn. And honestly, when Precure does that, that has been some of the, like, most memorable episodes for me. I'm gonna call out that one Smile Precure episode that saved me, where they go to Osaka, and they taught me one word, and that is Okini. And so when I went to Osaka in person and I ran around saying Okini, they were all like, oh my god, she knows consignment. I'm like, I sure know one word that I learned from Smile Precure. And I carried it, like, 10 years later when I finally used it. But I find it nice when they put these facts in here. Some people may not like it. I love it. It's the little details that matter to me. We also get to see a little bit more, again, on the flashback of Komugi. We keep building this up every couple episodes. Very sad to see how injured she was when they first found her. I didn't realize, like, I knew she was kind of like a stray, like, all aggressive on the streets. I didn't realize she was so injured. That, again, that could be a lore thing. She could have been fighting something. She could have been the thing that was fighting. Who knows? And we see her, like, I also like the fact that she didn't initially get along. Like, it wasn't just, like, a match made in heaven. Like, Iroha had to earn her trust, and the two of them grew to love each other to the point where Komugi doesn't even remember not getting along with Iroha. And I love that. Phenomenally love that. I mean, like, this scene is so cute where, like, at the end of the day, and this is very normal for animals too, animals choose to come to you, not so much you come to them, and having that detail in the characterization, it feels like the writers know what they're doing. It feels like the writers are being very genuine about the approach to having it be animal. Oh, they also put another fact. They point out about being a papillon, being a little papillon puppy, and they explain papillons. So, for the, like, 5 Miraculous fans out here, all of us know that one already. We already know what papillon is. But they point out the whole, like, butterfly ears and the breed thing, which is also great for me because I didn't realize there's a dog breed called a papillon. I did not major in dog breeds. I'm a cat person. I don't know anything about dog breeds. So you know what? I learned a little something here today. I was like, I kept seeing that she was referred to as a papillon, and I was like, tell me more. What does that mean? And we just have this cute little montage of, like, when they reach the point of trust in their youth. And also, these shots are just pretty. A lot of the shots here in this episode, when they have stills, they're very pretty. It's very cute. It's a pretty episode. I still think the art for this in general is very pretty. And then we see this style for the leash, and I like the consistent design for the leash as we see it later down the episode. I think it's cute. I think they handled it well. That's always more merch they can sell. And then I like that they shoehorned in Mayu. She doesn't interact with the rest of the crew, but we spend some time looking at her, and she's like, we get to see her reaction from the previous episode where she celebrates the bag, and, like, goes on this rant about having to reciprocate somehow and, like, expanding it. And we just see her genuinely happy, and Yuki just kind of, like, in her own little way cheering her on. Her very cat way. So, like, very much does a good job at segueing into the next segment where Mayu brings up the fact that what if I got her a leash? What if I got a special little leash? It's also walking themes. Like, I like how much these episodes really feed into each other. You don't necessarily have to watch them in order, which is one of the big things with Precure and children's show in general, especially that air on TV. You're not always going to see them in order, but it's little things like this where you do get a sense of what the order was. And then I just have to, it's cute. This is cat moment. I love my cat. This is a mood. This is me with my cat 90% of the time. I have a nervous breakdown. I gotta get some cat snuggles in. We also have a relatively early battle. I noticed that they immediately went into the battle like 50% into the episode, so I was like, okay, so this is going to be an episode where the battle means something, where this whole interaction is going to be very important. And then Satoru's there. This is the one thing that's not super explained well. Satoru is already at the Garu, like, being like, hey girls, glad you could join me. And I'm like, why is he there already? How did he get there faster? Especially since Daifuku is not here. Like, Daifuku is not, like, of all the characters that are included in this episode, Daifuku is not. Which I find it very weird that Daifuku is not present, because if there would be any explanation for Satoru being here and knowing where the Garu was, it would be Daifuku. All the animals are the ones who sense where the monsters are. So it's very weird that he's by himself and he's just here already. But also it goes to show you that whether or not he does end up being the mid-season, they are not side-changing the fact that he's present and he's considered a main character. I feel like this is the first time we've had a male character who's part of the team, and he's been included this much. Like, this is getting to levels that are very similar to, like, Yui and Go Princess, where the supporting character is very present in it and has nothing special about them. Like, when we had Delicious Party and we had Mari-chan, he was obviously very integral to, like, the fights and very much present, and he's kind of like the not fairy of the season. But Satoru literally has nothing to do with it, and he's still having a consistent presence, just in the story-wise. And then we get to the more fun part of this episode. I'm gonna try to say this as nicely as I possibly can. The animation in this episode isn't fantastic, but it does something. A lot of the times when Precure does not do anything with animation, they tend to just have like some really pretty stills with very limited amounts of motion, and they call it a day. But this episode, there's a lot of animation in it. It's just kinda ugly. But they do a lot of it. Like, it feels like, I don't know if they maybe let the novice animators come in and like have fun and just kind of work on it, because Precure I think is a low commitment series in terms of like expectations for animation. So if they like have people who are younger just kind of experiment, kind of get a feel, just have these moments where you can do animation but you don't have to really worry about like fans trying to burn down Toei Animation for bad animation, I feel like this is the perfect series to get away with that. So I appreciate that there is efforts for animation. I'd rather that than just a bunch of pretty stills. I appreciate that they do put animation in this episode, especially since this sort of Garu fight really sets itself up for animation, because it's ice skating themed. Like, there's all this ice skating, there's all this sliding around. So, like, it's very unique animation that would be, like, a lot of unique motion in the episode that can be kind of a field day for animators. They can have so much fun just experimenting with it, and it feels like that's what happened. While it's not great animation, it felt like fun animation. It felt like they probably had a little, they got to be a little bit creative and unique. Especially when we have the girls come in looking all eloquent, like they look so great, they look like very pretty coming in, and then they immediately like have this little panic moment and spiral off. And I love how Satoru's like, oh my god, are they dead? And they're like, we're fine, we're good, we're good, we're good. They're maintaining it. You can't do anything, buddy, but you get to witness the goofiness. And we get to see a couple of these just ice skating segments as they try to go after the Garu. Which again, since the sequence is pretty long, them moving around and trying to figure out how to catch the Garu to no success, building up to when we get the friendly tag, there's a lot of time spent doing this, so I get the impression that the animators wanted to animate. I get the impression that they wanted to do stuff, because they could have filled the episode with more time talking about, like, having an ant pet and, like, teaching them how to use the leash, like, or speaking to the mom and kid that we saw at the beginning of the episode. But they really focus a lot on the animation here, so I think this was something that they may have wanted to do. And we get our factoid. So again, back on the factoid rant, we have Satoru throw in, like, this penguin thing. I love. Again, I don't think it is seamlessly implemented into the series. Sometimes the factoids come off a little bit stiff, but I like it. I mean, I didn't, like, back, what was it, 2 episodes ago, we talked about the rabbit thing, where it's like, when rabbits are agitated, they will stamp their back leg, or I guess, yeah, back paw, their leg. They only have 2 legs. Either way, that was a factoid that I learned. I didn't know that piece of information. I did know the penguin fact, but I like that they're including it. We're gonna get, like, a little animal fact every couple episodes. I love it. I'm a big fan of facts. I like the random facts. And we also get to see again that this is a Kyudarin animal that they're going to be rescuing, and the little Jewel does an attack Specifically here we get this ice bridge, which, to be completely honest, especially the way it's implemented, this was very much just set up for what's about to happen, and not so much like this was any kind of attack or really doing anything for the penguin. This was very much a device to have a dramatic sequence occur. But nonetheless, we do see that the kitty animals have a little bit extra power. All of this culminating in our tact moment. I don't really know how to describe my feelings for this sequence, or really to point out what I kind of find wrong with it. It's very on par in Precure to have some great build-up and an emotional build-up, a lot of distress, ultimately culminating in receiving whatever object we're about to sell to children. This one, for whatever reason, it felt very abrupt, I think is the best way to put it. This sequence just kind of happened all of a sudden, and then Iroha did not manage to catch Komugi and she starts falling. And there's something about it where it's like, I didn't feel like there was a build to it. I didn't feel like there was really good build up. It just kind of happened and then we got it. I feel like the previous scene did a little bit better with it, with Hirogaru Sky, where there was that fight between Prism and Sky, with Sky being like, I don't want you to fight, and Prism being like, let me fight. I think that did a lot better job with having the whole episode focus on the two of them having this issue where you don't have Sora say out loud that she doesn't want Mashiro to fight, but she implies it through her actions, and it all culminates into the two of them confronting each other, or more so Prism confronting Sky in the middle of the battle. I feel like that was so well done and so well built. This just was a little bit more abrupt. There was a little bit of contention on Iroha. There was the concept that we put earlier in about Iroha being unsure if, like, if she's meant to be Komugi's owner or if Komugi was somebody else's dog, and losing Komugi. I feel like we could have leaned a little bit more into that to have this sequence build up to what ends up happening. When at the end of the day, the sequence itself, by itself, is very good. Komugi sits there and at no point, even when Iroha has missed the catch, she's like, I still trust you. I still believe you'll save me. Like, Komugi's complete trust in Iroha leads to this incredibly beautiful sequence. Like, the images here are just so pretty. Like, this is one of those moments where the stills are just extraordinarily beautiful. Like, I'm sitting here not having the emotional investment I'm supposed to have for it. Like, again, it caught me off guard. But this is so pretty. This is so insanely pretty. And it does ultimately perfectly tie in the concept of the leash. We bring it back in that she's able to, like, they have the magical leash. It's perfect. Yet, I think it must be the build. I think it's just the build that kind of caught me off guard. But overall, this ends up being very pretty. And it ends up having an emotional stance. I think the music could have been a little bit better, but ultimately, I think it was, for, like, again, if you take this clip by itself and show it to people, I feel like you get more of an emotional reaction than watching the rest of the episode. And then thus we have the friendly tact be born. And we get to see the usage of it, because a lot of us were sitting here knowing that this product was going to come into existence, and we were like, what are we gonna do with it, though? Like, what's this gonna, what do we do with the friendly tag? And we see that it turns into more of a, like, boost power-up item, which we've seen in Precure before. And we see the connection with the Kyodine animals, which I think was leaked maybe a few days before this episode, where they explained each of the Kyodine animals' power that gets added. And I like how they implemented this, like, the whole ears, while being pretty simplistic, go with the outfit. There have been other times where power-ups have been implemented in a very basic whatever way. I think here having, like, the increased sound skill is done well. I think it's interesting. It includes a rabbit, it includes sound, it doesn't completely clash with her outfit, it matches the color of the Kyodine animal, and she uses it to track down where the Garu is going. There's also the implication that the tact is going to have, like, more of a group attack in the future, so now we just have, like, the basic usage of it, which, again, is something we've seen from items before. We've seen multifaceted items, like way back in Heartcatch, we had the Kokoro perfume both give them power-ups, their transformation, and whatnot. And then, as I had said before, which it seems to be the correct theory, the whole Nico trunk sequence is going to be a stock footage sequence where we just switch out the animal that gets rescued, as we see here. And then we have a short little sequence where Iroha and Satoru talk to each other. And then we have a cute little, like, hinge of potentially romance where he's like, I'm happy when you're happy. I'm like, calm down, Satoru. Don't be saying nice things like that. You stop that. Also, I just saved this screen cap because this is one of those, like, moments where Satoru, look how goofy this dude looks. Look how goofy he looks in this. This reminds me of, like, the Puella Magica era where people would take, like, the in-betweener screen caps and make them into memes. This is one of those moments. He'd be looking like he's going through it. And then we end our episode with where we're gonna go next episode, and I'm saying that the way I am right now because I do have a confession. I don't like bickering. I don't like bickering. And I'm fortunate for the most part because a lot of the newer generation, I think kind of like, maybe like Hagoto and on, I specifically remember Star Twinkle being one, and then Tropical Rouge, where our duo characters bicker for like an episode, but it's very self-contained to that episode, and they pretty much never fight after that. And they put up setup here for Komugi getting really jealous of Iroha for using the tact first, and Komugi didn't get to use it, which makes sense for what's going on in the show. Komugi having a jealousy streak kind of goes in line with just being a dog, and dogs having just very childish mentality, very simple mentality. So it fits her character. I just don't like bickering. I still face the trauma of like Sweet Precure and Yes 5 with just the incessant bickering that exists for the entire season. I don't think that's gonna be too much of a problem this season. I'm really hoping it's just like Star Twinkle where we hit it in like the 3rd episode and then we never bicker again. I'm gonna try to have faith, but I also am somebody who's like, I keep my expectations low because if you have them at the bottom, it can only go up. It could only be better. I don't want there to be a lot of bickering, but I also know that the way that Komugi has been portrayed thus far, that there's going to be a handful of episodes where someone's gonna have issues with Komugi. I'm hoping that there'll be character development, because that's the one thing that the older seasons didn't have. They didn't have character development. It would just be we bicker for the episode, and we will repeat the same bickering 10 episodes down the line, if not every single episode like Sweet Precure. I am very salty about the bickering. But I know we're at least gonna get a Komugi episode where she gets jealous of Satoru, and there's probably gonna be a Komugi versus Yuki episode just because they are definitely going towards the cat and dog, which my only request is that if we're going to have to include them, that they don't be frustrating. So I think next episode is gonna be setting the precedent for what those fight episodes are gonna be like. I give it to the fact that we are way overdue for them. We don't have a lot of aggressive fight episodes, or we haven't had any kind of bickering between two characters that has really felt real in quite some time. A lot of the bickering has been more emotional, again with Sora versus Mashiro in the early episodes where there was a noble reason why they were fighting with each other. Same thing with Raburine and Nodoka. We just haven't had some serious actual fights between people. And so I think we're overdue for it. I just hope that it's here, sparingly, and then similar to similar to Star Twinkle, I hope we get over it. We get our character development, like we unlock the character development and we don't do it again. Because never seeing Hikaru and Lala fight ever again in the series was a blessing. It was so great. One of the reasons why I think Star Twinkle is one of my favorite seasons is that it was very necessary for their friendship to get over that hump, but they never fought again and it was wonderful. I'm hoping they will do that here. But this is just a little bit of me doomsday. Hopefully it'll be fine. I'm sure it will be. It can't be that bad. But we'll see next time. And I will see you next time. So until then, bye-bye!